Well, hello everyone and welcome back to Shutters and Speed. Today you join me in the West Norfolk countryside in the village of Fincham. We're just exiting that village as it happens, and we're on a bit of an equipment test. We're going to be having a look at some neutral density filters from an outfit called Freewell. So without further ado, as we say here in Norfolk, we will run them their titles, boy, and get into today's action. Yeah, so welcome back to Shutters and Speed. Yeah, I've been thinking about this ND filter malarkey on action cameras, and I've been watching one or two videos by sort of fairly well followed YouTubers, as it were, who have been adopted the use of these filters for their everyday vlogging work, as it were. And although initially I wasn't really convinced by it, I have to say that when I've seen the quality of the footage that some of these people are producing using them, I thought, well, let's give it a go and see how it all works. Now, the main problem, of course, with using ND filters, of course, is that you know, sometimes the slower shutter speeds that you need on to get the level of motion blur that is often deemed attractive for footage on camera action sort of scenes, as it were, is the amount of light and the way the cameras handle that, and also the way the camera's stabilization system reacts. So I'm out here today. I've bought a set of these Freewell ND filters, which I've no doubt shown you back in the studio.
Yes, so here we are indeed back in the studio, where I thought I would interject at this point to show you the filters and how they appear in the pack and so forth. So here indeed is the pack. It looks like this in the case, and then if you open the case up, you have 4 filters installed in the case there, and they are 4 neutral density filters of different strengths. You've got the ND8, 16, 32 and 64. So it gives you 4 different levels of control over your footage with the Action 3, 4 or 5 series of cameras, and they are absolutely essential if you want to take full control of your exposure outdoors when you want to achieve the motion blur effect. And very quickly I'll just show you how they fit. You take the filter out of the case, as it were, and you take your Action 3, 4 or 5, which I have here. It is actually installed in a small rig protective case at the moment, but that doesn't seem to affect it in any way, shape or form. And you simply slide the filter over the top of the lens in this fashion, and away you go. And it's got a sort of neoprene seal inside there, which really does seem to work in holding the thing firmly on, and it's not going to come off, it's not going to go anywhere, and you're ready to go. So I thought what we would do now is just go out into the wilds of what is Mrs. Shutter's garden and show you how I set the camera up for the Osmo Action 4 to get the required shutter speed using these ND filters. Yeah, so here we are in a random scene outside, and I hope I'm going to be able to demonstrate how to set the camera up so that we can set the required 1/120th of a second shutter speed that we're after to achieve the motion blur that we're looking for in the footage. So we're going to go through all the settings on the back of my Osmo Action 4 here to try and show you how that all comes together. And everything at the moment is set to auto, apart from the ISO setting, which is set at a range between 100 and 800 ISO. So let's go into the settings and have a look and make the necessary changes. So as you can see, we're in auto. We've got the white balance set to 5200K, which will actually give us a nice daylight balance shot, and there'll be no color shifts in any way, shape or form as we go through the footage. So that's obviously great news. And obviously that will keep there no matter what we do and what kind of light we come into contact with. But as we're sort of outside most of the time, that is set to go. We've got the color setting on the D-Log M setting there, which is
gives us the maximum dynamic range, so we can get the maximum amount of the highlights and the shadows, and everything there is set to go. But the big question is the exposure setting, which is currently on auto, and we're now going to move that over to manual. So we go to manual, and as we can see now, if we just go back to auto for a second, you can see that the ISO is at around 110 or thereabouts, and the shutter speed is 640th of a second, which is obviously way too quick for what we want. We want 120th of a second. So if we go into the manual settings, and then we can just scroll up or down, we can set this up to whatever shutter speed we require, and I want 120th of a second. So there we are. Now, as we can see there, that the EV reading at the top there is telling me that at that shutter speed and at an ISO of 100, we are nearly 2 stops overexposed, which is obviously not what we want. But if I now apply the neutral density filter, this is the ND8, you can see that the exposure comes down to around where we want it to be at 120th of a second, and everything is hunky-dory and we're ready to go. And of course that will stay at that range now for the duration of the shoot. And you can also see that the ISO, although it's gone up to 440, it's right smack in the middle of the range pretty much of the 100 to 800. So the light levels can vary quite significantly one way or the other, and we'll still get a satisfactory exposure. And even if things do go a little bit out of control, because we're in the D-Log-M setting, we can actually extract that and sort that out in post. So everything is all set up and ready to go, and hopefully we'll get a good result. And I've got the forward-facing camera set up with one of these on board. I've got the exposure set as we showed you in the studio, so obviously I shall be taking a close look at the footage we get today and see how that differs from the automatic settings, as it were. So we're going to ride along here for a short while, and we're going to try this out to see how the footage compares with the sort of ND filter attached as opposed to not having one attached. And I'm looking for two things really. I'm looking to see how the area on the outside here is affected by using a sort of slower shutter speed than perhaps the camera would set normally, and also I'm looking to see how the camera stabilization system is affected. I think I've got the shutter speed set at 1/120th of a second, which is probably slower than what would normally be set by the camera in these lighting conditions. So we'll see how that pans out. And as we've no doubt described in the studio, I've got the camera set to 4K at 30 frames per second. So it'll be very interesting to see how it all works and how it sort of affects the quality of the footage that we get. The one thing to note, of course, is that I don't actually have an ND filter attached to the cockpit camera, which is pointing to me. But if I feel that the effect is great, then I shall probably purchase another set of these filters so that I can use them on the cockpit camera as well to get the same effect. Because the view behind me, the view that you see sort of passing by behind me, would also be perhaps improved if there was a bit more motion blur. But we'll go back to the studio and have a look at the footage and see what we think. Yeah, so here we are, we're rattling along the A1122 towards Swaffham with the old ND filter now taken off, and we're back in auto settings, albeit that we've got the ISO set to a minimum range of 100 to 800 ISO, and we have the white balance set at a manual setting of about 5200K, so that we get consistency in white balance and there's no shifts as we move along. But other than that, all the settings are as per the camera would set. And when I changed over, I noticed that immediately the shutter speed jumped up to around 1/1000th of a second. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see the difference in the footage with all this extraneous detail as we move along, and see how that is affected by the faster shutter speed compared to the slower shutter speed with the filter attached. So this is all very interesting stuff, and and hopefully it bears out what we found, or what other people have found as well, and it just gives you that little bit more control over your footage and how it looks. So we're just going to rattle along the dual carriageway section of the A47 here. So hopefully that'll give us a good idea of how things are panning out, as it were. And with that, with this little section over, we'll go back to the studio.
Yeah, so welcome back to the studio here. I thought I'd just show you a side-by-side comparison of the footage that I achieved today with both the ND filter attached and not. So we have a shutter speed of 120th of a second, or whatever the camera decided to set when it was in full auto mode. Now I suspect with the lighting conditions that we had at the time, I would imagine it would be around the sort of 800 to 1,000th of a second, which is obviously very quick and will freeze any action, as it were. Now that may be what you want, but I do quite like the look of the cinematic blurred footage that I've got with using the ND filter. But I thought I'd just show you an example of that on my screen here, side by side. You can see the effects, and then make your own mind up as to whether you think this is a viable proposition for you. So let's take a look. Yeah, so here is the footage side by side in the app here, and I'm just going to press the old go button, and as you can see on the left, the foliage and the road is nicely blurred and is looking quite cinematic, whereas on the right everything is looking really quite sharp. The road especially is showing almost every grain in the tarmac. And at a certain point coming up, you will see a still shot of the footage side by side. Here we go now. Yep. And so here you can see in graphic detail the side by side comparison. On the left here you've got the footage with the image, if you like, with the ND filter attached and the shutter speed set at 120th of a second. And on the right you can see the effect of having the camera in auto mode, where it sets the shutter speed automatically, and I suspect, I don't know, but I would imagine, judging by that, the shutter speed was somewhere in the sort of 800 to 1,000th of a second or thereabouts. So there you have it side by side, and I hope that sort of illustrates the point of this video in its entirety, so to speak. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video around the Freewell ND filters and how they might affect your camera footage. I was a little bit skeptical to start with, I have to say, but I have sort of been seduced, if you like, into the fact that the cinematic sort of look is the way to go. I like the look of it, and I hope you do too, but of course that's down to personal opinion. So I think that just about sums it up for today, really. So I do hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, I would hope that you would take the trouble to like and subscribe. But in the meantime, until next time, as we say here in Norfolk, do you keep on a troshin', boy.